Welcome, everyone. We will be looking at the challenges, in particular, to not for profit organizations that they would be facing in the context of managing performance. Let's try to start the discussion in that direction. So, what are the four main problems that NFPs face? You know that their objective is not profit, right? That's not their objective, but they need to perform as well as a profit oriented organization performs, sometimes even better, because the expectations are bigger and more moral. There is funds that are coming in. Those funds have to be utilized effectively. There cannot be misuse of funds, misappropriation of funds. So all the things that, in terms of managing a company well, all of those things, leadership, all of those things are applicable to a NFP as well. The only thing is that the end goal, the end result, is not looked at in terms of profits. Now, in terms of the problems, your syllabus identifies four main problems. First is assessing the usage of funds. Now, you're getting donations or tax or whatever, your organization, let's say you're running a not for profit. How do you really assess the use of funds? And assessing the utility, in fact, whether the funds are being used appropriately, whether it's effectively being used. That is a challenge. Challenge number two, non quantifiable costs and benefits. So, because you're not looking at things from financial terms, you don't have an income statement, balance sheet, not in the classical or the financial sense. You do have financial statements that are more geared toward the not for profit sector. But the most of the costs and benefits, most of the expenses, and most of the especially the benefits, because sure, you would have money and you're getting donations and you're spending them, but there are also a lot of voluntary activities that happen, that sort of thing. But if you look at the benefits, you're looking at, either something like the Red Cross is trying to save lives, United Nations is trying to create world peace, wildlife organizations, environmental organizations are trying to save trees. So where is the quantifiable nature to these goals and these objectives, right? So missionaries are trying to convert. So when you look at these things, the non-quantifiable nature of the benefits largely is another challenge, because it poses, or it puts a strain on figuring out whether the company is really doing well or not. Third is multiple and diverse objectives. So if you look at the United Nations, the Sustainability Development Goals, look at how many they have. Right? There are 17 SDGs. Of course, that those were proposed as a proposal for other organizations to adopt as well. But the issue is that, even, 17 goals, that's just way too wide. Similarly, with not-for-profit organizations, depending on the number of donors, depending on the objectives that they and the visions they have, all of that, depending on the number of large, sizable donors, etc., there can be more and more diverse objectives that keep on adding itself onto, or latching onto the organization. So unless you have like a really stringent level of control, most not-for-profit organizations have a lot of objectives, a lot of expectations to fulfill. So this diverse nature is a challenge. The final one is, of course, the impact of politics, because every NFP, or almost all NFPs, especially in a lot of governments that like to take a loose approach to things and have connections and lobbying and that sort of thing, especially corrupt governments, in many of the world governments that we see today, they have a hand in almost all NFPs. So the impact of politicians and politics, because they see it as a good way of getting votes. In such a case, that is also one of the major challenges. Now, how do we actually look at or addressing these challenges? The first one, assessing the usage of funds. You can use a technique called value for money, right? The three E's approach, which we will be looking at separately in a different segment. But just to tell you, economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, right? Those are the three E's. So whether you're using the funds well, you would use the three E's format to assess. But there are other tools like benchmarking, and working against targets, right? You're trying to use your knowledge, you're trying to diagnose and look at your past performance and what you have done and that sort of thing, and you try to assign targets, not financial, not profitability, not those targets, but targets nonetheless relevant to whatever your objective is, and see if those are being achieved, and take that. If they are being achieved, take that as a positive sign, saying, sure, we seem to be using the funds well. Appropriate performance measures. Okay, or internal audit also. You can commission internal audit work. You can get a third party auditor if you want, to or independent people, independent volunteers who are seniors, who are experienced, who have time to volunteer to engage in review activities and audit activities to see whether the funds are being utilized well. The second challenge, non-quantifiable costs and benefits. A very straightforward technique that we can use is cost versus benefit, or cost benefit analysis. That is essentially trying to quantify in monetary terms all the costs and all the benefits associated with a decision. Now, this is challenging, I know, especially with regard to benefits. Costs, of course, because it's directly related to the money you're spending. Only a few activities may be like voluntary engagements, maybe ones that you don't necessarily have a cost to associate. So those you translate by labor hours, or minimum wage or things like that. You try to quantify them, but otherwise, you basically, in terms of the benefits, whatever benefit you're gaining, like let's say you're saving trees. So what you do is you try to get a fair value for each tree saved, and you would try to quantify the now if you save 1,000 trees, that's 1,000 into that fair value, and see what kind of benefit you're gaining. So as I said, it's subjective, this determining fair values and quantifying these kind of non-financial benefits. It's not easy. It's difficult, but it is one of the solutions that can be used to the extent that is possible. When you have multiple and diverse objectives, which is the third issue, then what you do is you can obviously you have to there is no other way, you have to prioritize. That's one of the most effective methods. You have to prioritize what is the most urgent matter, what is the most important matter, and make a valid neutral judgment saying these are the important objectives that we need to attain. Like, for example, patient care in a hospital, patient care will be prioritized above something like work life balance. Not that it is eliminated or it's not given importance to, but given the urgency of the situation, someone would actually, even if there's a doctor or a team of doctors who are tired and maybe they've finished their shift, but an emergency requirement comes in, then they would have to prioritize and go for the patient care approach. And on the other end, you would make compromises. You would, it's satisficing, basically, or basically telling yourself, okay, fine, let me deal with half of this issue, and let me take care of this as much as I can. Let me try to address this way. So you try to compromise to the best of your ability. Impact of politics, of course, one good solution is to try to distance yourself as much as you can, even though it is challenging. You try to distance yourself as much as you can from it. um, the other aspect is to encourage and to promote long-term vision with politicians. In their conversations, when you communicate with them, you try to convey to them that there are serious matters that are happening, and that it would also be in their best interest to understand why adopting a long-term vision might actually be good, and it might actually work. But overall, it's you deal with the situation as it is. That's the best way to deal with politicians. So those are the four main problems, and the different ways that we can solve. The first problem was assessing the usage of funds. Second was non-quantifiable costs and benefits. The third was multiple and diverse objectives. And the fourth was impact of politicians. Assessing the use of funds, sure, we can use techniques like benchmarking, league tables, value for money, which we will look at in the next segment. Non-quantifiable costs and benefits, you try to do your best. Using CBA, cost benefit analysis, you try to quantify to the best of your ability and leave it at that. Multiple and diverse objectives, you prioritize and you compromise. Impact of politicians, you look at the situation and you play it safe, and you try to distance yourself as much as you can, especially from problematic governments, regimes, and politicians. That is how you deal with the challenges that we face in a not for profit organization. Thank you and good luck.